All right, good evening, everyone. I will call this City Council and Local Contract Review Board to order. And before we begin tonight's meeting, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that many people in our community are feeling anxious and unsettled by what we are seeing and hearing about federal immigration enforcement activities, both here in our region and across the country. Regardless of where people may fall on national immigration policy, Tiger is home to families, workers, business owners, students, and neighbors from many, many backgrounds. Everyone deserves to feel safe going about their daily lives, sending their kids to school, going to work, and participating in community life. The City of Tiger does not set federal immigration policy, and therefore tonight's meeting is not the place to debate those policies. But it is appropriate for us as your local government to recognize the concern many residents are experiencing and to affirm our commitment to treating everyone who interacts with the city with professionalism, respect, and dignity. For those who wish to express their views, our country has a long tradition of exercising First Amendment rights. Peaceful expression, civics engagement, and respectful dialogue are essential to a healthy democracy. And we encourage people to do so lawfully and safely. I also encourage residents to share their perspectives with their elected representatives at all levels of government. At the local level, City Council members, we are always available to hear from you. At the state and federal level, there are upcoming opportunities as well. This Friday, Senator Jeff Merkley is holding a town hall in Beaverton, just across the street from Tiger. State Representative Sue Ricky Smith is also holding a town hall this Saturday. Information about these events will be shared through City's social media channels, and you can contact their office directly for details. In conclusion, if you are feeling worried or uncertain, please know that city leadership and staff remain focused on delivering essential services, maintaining public safety, and supporting a community where people look out for one another. With that, we'll proceed with tonight's agenda. Deputy City Recorder Bartholomew, would you please conduct a roll call, please?
Councillor Anderson?
Here.
Councillor Gadusi?
Present.
Youth Councillor Hellick?
Here.
Mayor Hu?
Here.
Councillor Robbins?
Here.
Councillor Schlack?
Here.
Councillor Shaw?
Here.
Council President Wolf?
Here. Here.
Would you please stand and for Pledge of Allegiance? Council member and city staff, do you have any non-agenda items?
None from us, Mayor.
Seeing none, let's move on to public comments. While public comments is not dialogue, either I or staff will follow up to address the issue brought forward in this comment. Thank you. The calling number is 503-966-4101, and those wishing to comment should call now to get into the queue. Anyone present wanting to comment should sign up on the public comment form at the front of the room. So we received no written public comments by Monday noon deadlines. And for in-person, I don't see anybody signing up. So anybody here? None. So let's move on to phone or video comment. Mr. Van, are there any callers in the queue for phone or video testimony?
No callers, Mayor.
Thank you. So let's move on to City Manager report. Acting City Manager Trish will give a brief report. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks very much, Mayor, Council. If I could have the slide, please. Thanks, Robert. I'm pleased to share an important announcement for the benefit of the community. The Tigard Public Library Services will be moving to a temporary location here at Tigard City Hall starting Friday, February 6th, after the library's building temporarily closes for construction beginning on February 1st. This is to install the new HVAC, or the air processing units, on top of the library. It's part of how we are updating that facility. I'd like to let community know that Express Library Services will be available at Tigard City Hall during this closure from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. Friday through Sunday, and includes story times at 10:15 in the morning, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as well as a selection of library events, small browsing collection of items for checkout, access to Wi-Fi, computers, and limited printing, technology help, and assistance with library accounts. In addition, our library teammates will be available on the phone every day, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at their usual number, which is 503-684-6537. And you can also get information online if you go to tigard-or.gov/library. If you have questions leading up to that event, you can stop by our library anytime or ask anyone in the city, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. Patrons can also visit any of the Washington County Library branches, and we look forward to reopening the library for services on or before May 1st. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting City Manager Trish. Councilor, do you have any question or comments? Seeing none, let's move on to the next item on our agenda, which is consent agenda. The consent agenda is used for routine items. Information on each item is available on the city's website in the packet for this meeting. These items may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Council members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Tonight, we have 3 consent items. All are contract. One for on-call engineer/architectural/related services, one for on-call water system engineer/hydrogeologist of record, and one contract amendment for bond counsel services. Councilor, do you have any question, or would you like to pull any item for separate consideration?
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Mayor Hu, this is Council President Wolf, and I know on item A, it covers a tremendous broad spectrum, but I was just hoping to have even a range to give us a sense of the scale of the approval of the 5-year, and that's all I was asking for, but I don't want to pull it. Thank you.
Okay, so we have our engineer project team online, I believe, to answer those questions.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The range for these projects are typically up to $250,000 per task order. However, that is not a limit to the contract, so there can be multiple task orders issued against each contract. Past practice, they've ranged from $2,000 up to $250,000, and it's all budgeted through our capital improvement plan budgets. They are for up to 5 years. That is with multiple extensions that can be granted to get to that 5 years. So I can go into more details if you have more specifics you would like us to share, but that is the range. It's up to $250,000 per project or per task order.
Thank you, Joe, and I think it's fine. I think it's just the scale and then recognizing it goes through the capital budget process. So I'm fine, and thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to ask the question. So thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe and Council President Wolf. And before we vote on it, I have a short disclosure as well. So before we proceed to the vote on the bond counsel selection, I want to make a brief disclosure for transparency. Earlier in my career, I worked at the same law firm as several of the bond attorneys at the firm under consideration. However, I do not have any current relationship with the firm, and I also have no personal financial interest in this matter. And this prior professional connection does not affect my ability to participate impartially in discussion. I'm just sharing this solely in the interest of transparency. So we have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The consent agenda is adopted by a unanimous vote of the council. So let's move on to the next item, our agenda item, which is presentation of external financial audit by Baker Tilly, formerly Moss Adams, and Assistant Finance Director McClock, and Engagement Reviewer and Principal Keith Simovic from Baker Tilly will give the report. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Hu, City Councilors. Nice to be here. Thank you. Mr. Simovic should be here shortly. Yeah, I've got a little bit of an update for you beforehand. So while we're waiting for Keith, I'm here tonight to assist in presenting the 2025 audit results for the city. Before we get started, I wanted to point out that, like last year, this audit was completed timely, and we filed with the state prior to the 12/31 deadline. So again, we're still very, very compliant with that in that respect. We were able to do this while implementing the utility billing module and also the new GASB 101 related to compensated absences. Also, if you remember, there were 2 best practice recommendations suggested by Baker Tilly last year. Just want to remind everyone that we don't really forget about those and take them very seriously. One of those being to establish an allowance for doubtful accounts related to utility billing. That is a best practice. And so this year we identified certain accounts that we deemed uncollectible and have actually disclosed and recognized that in the financial statements. So that is an ongoing process. We will revisit that every year based on the health of our aging and continue to identify accounts that we deem uncollectible. The second being an IT recommendation to review access for ERP users to make sure that their access level is appropriate to that position. I'm happy to report that the city implemented both of these recommendations prior to June 30th, 2025. We implemented both of those recommendations prior to June 30th, 2025. These successes and improvements are made possible by several staff members that you don't see here. So all of finance plays a role, but if I could point out the financial operations group led by Amy Lawson. Amy and her team do most of the heavy lifting and are absolutely key in delivering a quality audit. I'd also like to point out that the city received the GFOA's Triple Crown Award. That is recognition for the city's budget document, the city's ACFR, and also the city's PAFR, which is the, I call it the People's Annual Financial Report, but it's basically a smaller version of the ACFR designed to invite more reading and provide a little bit higher level results to the financial statements. To give you an idea, Tigard is one of only 300 nationwide to receive this, and there are 90,000 municipalities. So we are one of 300, that is 0.3% of that population. So we take it very seriously and are proud of that award. I say that because we are applying again for 2025 based on the work we've done so far. So we also applied for those awards with the ACFR and the PAFR. So, and similar to last year, there are new best practice recommendations that you're going to hear from Mr. Simovic. All 3 relate to the utility billing and the implementation of the module this year. I'm happy to report that the city started taking steps to rectify once these were brought to our attention this fall during the audit. So we don't wait until December or January when we're talking with you to make those changes. So for the finance department, best practice adherence is paramount to improvement. And we take the recommendations very seriously and are committed to improving year over year. With that, I would like to introduce you once again to Keith Simovic, principal at Baker Tilly, the city's external auditor. Like Amy and the finance team, Keith's team is very integral to a successful audit, and it's very much a team approach. And I'm very proud to have Keith next to me here. So.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to be here, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, to present the results from the 2025 financial statement audit for the city, which we finalized just before the holiday, right in time for the end of the year, and of course for the city to file with the Secretary of State Audits Division, which you have to do within 6 months of your fiscal year end. So you've been able to achieve that, get it done timely, and file it with the state like you have to each and every year as well. So the goal tonight is to kind of go through those results in a little more detail. We did get a chance to sit with the audit committee for the city right before we were able to finalize the audit as well, and going through these results in a little more detail than we'll go through tonight. But happy to pause, answer any questions as we go along as well. Go ahead and advance the slide. Or I don't know if I have a clicker or anything like that. No. Okay. We can probably advance one more as well. Perfect. Just a quick recap of our team, because it's not just me. You see me and hear me tonight. I get to present the results and some of the good news here, but there's a full team, and it's not just the folks that you see on the screen here as well. This is kind of the core kind of managerial group that we have serving the city of Tigard. So in addition to myself, we have Kevin Muller-Liley that serves as our kind of what we call our concurring reviewer, really a QC role. Harvey Wang that served as the audit manager on this engagement for a number of years with me. And then Tyler Kalamanis is our IT audit manager. So as part of this audit, we look at the internal controls related to the city's Tyler system as well. And so we've brought in kind of specialized expertise on the audit over these last few years as the city has brought this new system online and continues to bring new modules online. So we brought Tyler and his team of specialists into this engagement to really look at the conversion over to the Tyler system, how we're bringing these new modules online, how we're setting things up from a security and access standpoint, a change management standpoint, and making sure the internal controls there are very sound. Go ahead and advance the slide. Lots of words on this page. We'll have to change this up for future years. But this is kind of to give you an idea of the different reports and services that we provide as part of this audit process each and every year. So when you hire an independent auditing firm to come in and do a financial statement audit for a local government in Oregon, these are the different reports that you'd expect to receive and the different services you'd expect to receive. So boxes 1 and 2 are related, but it has to do with the ultimate deliverable of our report over the fairness and accuracy of the city's financial statements. So that's through all the detailed testing that we do back to contracts, agreements, and invoices and different pieces of substantive evidence to be able to support what the city has captured, recorded, and ultimately reflected in that ACFR, that annual comprehensive financial report, at the end of the year. So we want to make sure there's evidence supporting the information that is reflected in that document. We also do kind of a technical review of that document, making sure it's set up in the format and includes all the disclosures and different pieces that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board that the city has to follow, that it incorporates all those different pieces as well as the different additional items that the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA, for that additional award that Keith mentioned, that the city is receiving each and every year. So we want to make sure that you're able to continue to put yourself in a position to receive that award each and every year as you apply for it. So that's something that we do to do that technical review and make sure that you can continue to receive that award. Box 3 is a separate audit report that we have to provide because we do the audit in accordance with government auditing standards. That is required whenever you have a certain amount of federal funding that you expend in a given year. and the federal government requires that we're doing the audit in accordance with government auditing standards, which just adds a little bit of a layer in terms of additional reporting that we have to do. So this is an additional report where we would note if we had any instances of material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls. Those are kind of the red flag items that you want to be on the lookout for. Spoiler alert, we did not have any that rose to that level, but this is a report that you would see those things. You don't see those types of things in normal corporate audits that are not done in accordance with government auditing standards. Box 4 is an additional report that we have to put out there and note any instances of non-compliance with certain Oregon minimum standards. So the state of Oregon says, hey, you auditor, if you are out doing an audit of a local government in the state of Oregon, we want you to look at certain compliance requirements, certain state statutes, and see if that local government is following those, and go out, do testing, and find evidence if they're following those or not. So there's an additional report in your ACFR in accordance with the Oregon minimum standards where we note the different items that we look at each and every year. I'd say the areas where we spend the bulk of our time is going to be state statutes surrounding following local budget law, as well as the public procurement standards as well, is kind of where we're spending the bulk of our time. There's a number of other things that we're looking at there, but that's the report where you'll see if we note any instances of noncompliance. Because of the level of federal expenditures in the current year, there's an additional report that we have to issue that'll be separate from your ACFR that will be finalized at a later date. For your compliance with those underlying grant agreements. What are those requirements in those grant agreements, and did the city follow those when spending those funds? So that's something that we're currently working on wrapping up right now. A little bit of a delay there because of the information from the federal government that gets put out each and every year that tells independent auditors, here's the things that the federal agencies want you to look at for all these grant programs. That came out very delayed this year. The government shutdown kind of delayed that a little bit further as that was not getting worked on, so that didn't come out until very, very late in the year. So we are kind of finalizing all those audits now. No audits kind of across the country were able to get finalized as that was outstanding. And then item number 6 is a separate letter. It's called the Communication to Those Charged with Governance. That is a letter that gives you a little more information into the audit process and how it went. So not just did we get a clean audit or not, or a clean opinion or not, all those things are very important, but this is a letter intended for you as the governing body of the organization to tell you more things about how did it go? Did we run into issues along the way? Did we find errors along the way? Maybe they were corrected at the end of the day, but did we find errors? Do we see any internal control deficiencies, best practices? That's the intention of that letter. That is separate, again, from your ACFR report. Go ahead and advance the slide. Number of different things that we look at each and every year within your financial statements. These are kind of just a bullet point list of the areas where we spend most of our time. So of course the additional modules that came on online this year with utility billings and the permitting and licensing. So again, we had those additional IT folks that helped us out there. Capital assets and that process of identifying projects and getting those closed out and capitalized timely. The utility billings process with the new system coming online, and of course all the internal controls that have to be in place there to make sure at the end of the day when a bill gets to a customer, it's for the right amount, at the right consumption, the right rates, those types of things. You had a new accounting standard you had to adopt in the current year. Your team had to adopt GASB Statement 101, which all local governments did. This really impacted how you account for compensated absences and really kind of added to the liability there because you had to account for the idea of sick pay being accrued for, whereas in the past, under the old guidance, you didn't have to do that. So that's impacting local governments kind of across the country right now. The compliance with the Oregon minimum standards, the additional testing we do there, that's always a focus. And then we always have to be aware of the potential for the management override of internal controls. This is not something that's specific to the city. This is a area that we have to look at on every audit that we do and list as a critical audit area because of folks in a management position and the influence they can have, the access they can have within a system. We have to design procedures each and every year to be on the lookout for the potential for management override of internal controls. Go ahead and advance the slide. All right, so at the end of the day, the different kind of deliverables that I talked about before, what are you going to see in those? When you look at the ACFR, our report over the fairness and accuracy of the financial statements, it's a clean audit opinion, exactly what you're looking for. Any third party, of course, the state, debt holders, general public. Anyone that takes a look at this, they want to know, did you get a audit done by a qualified CPA firm that's licensed to do this work? Of course we are. Did you get the audit done in a timely manner, which you were done within the time frame to file with the state? And did you get a clean audit opinion? That's exactly what you're looking for there. So very good news. As I mentioned, we didn't have any material weakness or significant deficiencies to note in the government auditing standards report. Also very clean and good news. We did have a compliance finding noted in our Oregon minimum standards report. I'd say this is probably the most common compliance finding that we see within this report. It has to do with when there are budget over expenditures. So this is something where we have to note, and it doesn't matter if it's $1,000, $100,000, or $1. If you've overexpended on a budget appropriation in a given year, we have to note that within the report. So there are 3 instances of that are noted, both within our report, and the city has disclosed that in the footnotes to the ACFR as well. And then the single audit report, that's the one that has to do with the spending of the federal funds. We are close on that. We do not have any findings. We don't expect any findings. We expect to wrap that up in the next few weeks, but we do not have that issued quite yet. Go ahead and advance the slides. Within the communication to those charged with governance, you're going to see a number of different paragraphs in there. The bullet points you'll see on there kind of correspond to each of those paragraphs. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but some of the highlights that you'll see on there, you'll see a discussion of the adoption of the new accounting standard that I mentioned, mainly with the impact being from GASB 101 and the additional liability there for the sick leave piece of that. We also discuss, are there any audit adjustments? This would be anything as we're going through our testing, if there are any errors noted in the testing that we're doing, right? Where we're pulling evidence underlying a certain transaction. We say, hey, we pulled this invoice, and this invoice is for $10,000, but it's recorded in the system for $100,000. That's one small example of just saying, hey, the evidence doesn't support what's in the system, or maybe it's recorded in the wrong period in the wrong year. Maybe it's recorded in the wrong account. Maybe it doesn't follow the governmental accounting standards rules. Those are the things that can drive an audit adjustment if it's a material amount as we're going through. We did not have any material audit adjustments noted as we were going through, meaning the information that we're looking at is very clean and materially accurate, meaning your team has good internal controls that they're going through and vetting the transactions before they get captured in the system, before we start the audit process, so that you have a materially accurate set of financial statements. And then finally, in terms of audit observations and recommendations that you'll see within this letter, again, no material weaknesses, good news, but we do have a few best practices that we discussed both with the management team and that they've taken some action on already, as you heard, and then also with the audit committee, we discussed in detail all of those. And you'll see those kind of detailed on, I think, the next slide. Go ahead and advance the slide. And as you heard before, these are primarily related to, or all related to, utility billings. And some of these are new things that we hadn't noted in previous years, but with kind of the new module coming online with Tyler and everything, we've got some setup work and different things to kind of get the internal control structure set under the new system. So there's a few, and again, we're kind of classifying these as best practices. We're not kind of raising the flag on these or saying there's any significant concern here, but some things to kind of think about going forward. One having to do with a review of any adjustments made to customer bills by a second person other than the person preparing those. One related to retaining evidence of certain calculated charges for utility billings, and another one having to do with reviewing kind of the new rates that are set in place by the city and implemented into the system, and making sure that those are at the right amount that are consistent with the council approved rates as well. Go ahead and advance the slides. Oh, and I think I missed on the last one, but we did have a recommendation last year that we discussed with the audit committee, where the city had not recorded historically an allowance for doubtful accounts for its utility billing receivables. This is something we had recommended as a best practice in the past. We didn't think it was going to be a material amount. It wasn't, but we recommended that be considered, evaluated by management, and considered for recording in the future. The finance team did that in the current year. They have recorded an allowance for doubtful accounts that is disclosed in the financial statements now. So things like that we've noted in the past, definitely good to see that track record of the management team and the finance team taking a look at that, taking that to heart, and making those changes going forward. So we definitely saw that in the current year. We're able to validate that. I'm not going to spend too much time on new accounting pronouncements. Again, we went through this in a little more detail with the audit committee, but just to note, there are a few new standards coming out. We always like to bring these to the attention of the governing bodies, letting you know, hey, what's going to change our look and feel of financial statements in the future? And the good news, I'd say overall, and for your finance team as well, feeling a little bit better about things just because we've had so many changes in the accounting rules over the last 10, 15 years and so many additional disclosures and extra work that has had to be done by all the finance teams at any local governments to comply with these new rules. The new standards you see up here are really disclosure only. They're really only impacting your footnotes and kind of the look and feel of some of those and the things that you're having to disclose, but doesn't really change the underlying accounting for specific transactions or driving a lot of new analysis that your team's going to have to do to implement these. So really disclosure only, and we do not anticipate our clients having to spend as much time kind of evaluating these and adopting these as some of the standards that they've adopted over the last 10 years, even kind of the GASB 101 related to compensated absences that just got adopted last year. So good news there. Go ahead and advance the slide. Other than that, just a big thank you to everyone involved in this process. Finance does the heavy lifting. We really appreciate all the work that they do to kind of foster this along and make sure we can kind of get this to the point where we're able to work collaboratively and get this to the finish line on time. But lots of folks outside of finance play a part in this as well. We're talking to folks in all different departments, whether it's on the public works side, we're talking to IT, we're talking to payroll and HR. So a lot of different folks that we're talking to each and every year to kind of get to this point. We appreciate all their help and assistance in this process. And I think that's everything we had. Go ahead and advance the slide. Yes, just our contact information. So I'll pause there. If there's any questions, happy to entertain those.
Thank you for your presentation, for everybody who were involved in the project. So, Councilor Shaw.
Maybe, Mayor, not a question, but highlighting the Crown Triple Award. That seems like something we should highlight on the website. Sounds like it was sound fiscal accountability, good stewardship, and 1 out of 300. That's laudable. So congratulations. I see our Director of Finance is here, but to both the team, but also to all the staff that worked on that. So just wanted to highlight that, and perhaps we can highlight it on the website and maybe even a newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Schlack.
2 questions and then a request. So the first one, we talked about the designation of utility billing accounts that are not collectible. I'm just wondering, after this sort of first pass of that designation, about how many, percentage-wise are actually falling into that category?
So we bill about 22,000 accounts. I think this is right around 140.
Okay.
And it's just under 600,000,
Okay.
which from a percentage basis from our total aging is a pretty good percentage.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we won't get the money because we turn it over to collections, but obviously it'll be heavily discounted after that. But for our perspective, we're moving forward.
Yeah, cool. Just trying to understand the scale of it. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the audit committee's involvement with this particular audit process. I know I haven't served as liaison to the audit committee, so I'd just love to hear a little bit more about sort of their involvement and what maybe some of their feedback was as community members.
Yeah, so just a little background. We meet twice a year, and we have a counselor as a liaison. And so it's a very open process. All of these critical areas are discussed with the committee, and it's brought forth by Keith and Harvey in terms of where they're going to focus, what the current trends are in the environment, and where those hot topics are, where people really want to see them diving in. Again, a very open process. The audit committee meets separately or with just Keith as well, with staff out of the room. So it's a very transparent process, and we expect both parties, audit committee and Keith's team, to be very upfront and we adhere to kind of that directive and the tone. but very involved and very open, I would say.
I was just going to add one thing. I mean, I would say of my client base, probably less than 50% have an audit committee. And I feel like it's a very good, important thing. The audit seems to go better when that's in place. Definitely a good piece from a governance standpoint, obviously. But the committee is very engaged, asks good questions. You know, when we have findings in different things, they ask management, okay, what's the plan? How are we addressing this going forward? What's our timeline? And then the next meeting they'll ask again, okay, did we do those things? Did we follow up? Where are we at now? So I feel like it's a very, very good, healthy, important process to have in place, and I think it's a very good thing that the city has an audit committee.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then as far as my one request, which I think is more towards the acting city manager, I know we have a tentative agenda item coming up to talk about the Parks and Recreation fee. So I saw that come up as part of the audit. So I just wanted to flag that recalculation just to make sure it gets covered then. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Wolf.
Yeah, it was actually more, I serve as a liaison for the audit committee. Councilor Robbins has done that as a volunteer. But a lot of the committee members, I don't really have much to add beyond the keys, except to say that a lot of the members are technical experts that have accounting or CPAs as their background. And as Keith alluded to, we do have staff step outside. We ask those questions, have a really thoughtful conversation. And I think it's a great opportunity to serve as a counselor and an important component, and really proud that we have that oversight committee actively engaged. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody? Councilor Robbins?
Just thank you. Very, very briefly, I want to say hello. And yes, I got my start here volunteering in the city on the audit committee. And I just want to highlight the note that we got in the audit about how professional and prompt staff was with all of the documents that they turned in. It's a lot of work to participate in the audit, and I'm really proud of the city and what they've done. Just one more thing, as far as the audit committee goes, we also participated in the RFP process when we needed to renew and see who we were going to go with. And myself and the Fiona, the chair of the committee, participated in that process, did the interviews, and scored that. So the committee is actively involved throughout the process. And I learned a lot that I had no idea accountants did.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. Seeing no other question, I just would like to thank you again for your presentation and for your work. Thank you. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to our next item on the agenda, which is council liaison assignment. So this is the beginning of a new year's, and this council has expressed desire to revisit council liaison assignment, I believe, annually. And we also have a new council member, so it's a perfect time for doing that. So last Wednesday, I shared my proposed assignments with all the councilors, and you should all have a copy in front of you. I drafted those assignments based on the preferences and feedback you all provided. And I also try to balance the overall time commitment so that the workload is as fair as even as possible across council. I did my best. But this is only intended as a starting point for discussion, and I welcome your feedback. So with that, I'm happy to open it up for council discussion. Any complaint? Oh, Councilor Shaw.
I just want to thank you, Mayor, for making this process incredibly easy, simple, and moving the request forward. That had not been the case in the previous years, so thank you very much. And with that, I have no changes to my assignments and happy to serve the city of Tigard on these different liaison assignments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Shaw, for the kind words. So not hearing anything, I assume everybody's happy. Councilor Schlack?
Just going to say ditto to Councilor Shaw's perspective. Really appreciate the continuity on the regional side, but also sort of giving everybody a turn at some other city-related stuff, which was one of the key changes we had in our ground rules to make sure we all get exposure to different areas of city boards. So I'm very excited with my assignments. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So, okay, so everybody's happy. Oh, thank you for making my job easy too. So, all right, so we will just adopt the council liaison assignment as it is, and I'll ask our city team to make sure the transition is as smooth as possible. So, so all the council members will get their calendar invite and whatnot. So, thank you so much. All right, so let's move on to the next item on our agenda, which is transit lodging tax, TLT framework. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Danielle. I skipped. So sorry. Just I skipped one. Sorry. So next one is fiscal 27, FY27 Mayor and Council budget development discussion. So Assistant to the City Manager Hendricks will give the staff report. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to see you. Nicole Hendricks, Assistant to the City Manager. So I'm here tonight to seek your guidance on possible reductions for the fiscal year 2027 Mayor Council budget, with the staff recommendation being a 5.1% reduction of the current fiscal year's Mayor and Council budget. Next slide, please. Also included in the staff report, but not on this slide, we're looking to get your guidance on if the council also wants to consider a $5,000 contingency fund to respond to community needs. So this is suggested based on the council's action in November to support food security by donating to Pack with Pride in response to the SNAP benefit reduction. Next slide, please. So as you are already aware, the city is entering the upcoming budget cycle during a time of economic uncertainty and with about a $6 million deficit. Our departments are preparing the budgets considering a 10% reduction in general fund utilization. When developing this current fiscal year 2026 budget, the mayor and council had discussed reductions options of 3 to 10% in council meetings back in March and in April of 2025. So using those discussions, the city team is presenting some recommendations for the fiscal year 27 reductions. Next slide, please. So the following recommendations would save about $26,220 or 5.1% of the total mayor council budget. That list includes reducing the Tigard Youth Advisory Council travel costs for the National League of Cities Congressional Cities Conference by $2,500. So this would accommodate the shift that the league had made to have a separate youth-focused pre-conference. So that would send them to this conference rather than the pre-conference and the full conference. It's a lot of conference days last year. So similarly, in a few lines below, you'll see the reduction for the youth city councilor as well. So they would still attend the pre-conference there. The other recommendations are around training budgets. So counselor training budgets, reducing it by a total of $12,000. So that's $2,000 per counselor. So that would lower the individual counselor training budget from $9,000 to $7,000 each. Also the mayor's training budget, so by $6,600, which would reduce to a $10,000 budget. We also included in the staff report the spend history, so you just get a sense of how much has been spent in the past for training costs. I believe it's around a 30 to 55% utilization each year. So there is kind of traditional underspending for that, those areas. The last two we suggested are reducing state of our city spending from $6,000 to $3,000. We believe we can cut some food costs on that front. And then eliminating the Move with the Mayor program, which is the reduction of $1,250. So also in the staff report, we attached a list of all of the kind of discretionary items in the budget, just to give you a sense of what other things that could be considered. And just again, next slide please, looking for your guidance on the reductions, the recommendations, if you have other ideas that we're open to discussing. And then also thoughts on the contingency fund if you're interested in doing something like that as well. So I will hand it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Councilor, open for discussion. Councilor Gadusi.
One question and a comment in terms of comments for the Move with the Mayor. It looks like for that specifically, one of the reasons why so much is Move with the Mayor is actually trademarks, so you have to pay something towards that group. Is that correct?
Can you say that again? Trade?
For Move with the Mayor, is some of the fund going to the National Move with the Mayor?
No, I don't believe we're paying the national. It's more of just programming costs, advertising, publicity, that kind of
Perfect.
our
And then
costs. Not
For the state of the city, what would we lose in losing about half of the funding there?
for
The state of the city funding?
state of the city.
Yes.
Food.
Food?
Primarily,
Okay.
yeah. We have a lot of food at that event, so I think we could scale it back and we wouldn't
Yeah.
notice
yeah.
too much.
Yeah, there's a lot of leftover.
Yeah.
So
My only concern with that is, I don't know if we are paying for childcare or things like that.
we're still going.
We still,
We would
yeah.
do that. Great.
Councillor Schlack.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I support the proposed 5.1% cut that's presented. I'm personally not supportive of the $5,000 contingency, just because I'm not really interested in creating sort of that open-ended funding, considering the tight fiscal situation that we're in. I want to make sure that our dollars are intentionally going to specific destinations, if you will. And then this was a point I raised when we had our discussions last year when we were facing a 3 to 5% cut, and I advocated for matching what we were asking of our departments at 5%. While I'm supportive of the proposed reduction of 5.1%, if we're asking all other departments for a 10% general fund cut, I just feel it's important as a council to match that ourselves. That way we're walking the walk, so to speak. I don't have specific line item proposals if that's what, the conversation that we're about to we could have if other people want to do that, but that's just my position. If we could bump that up to 10% to match what we're asking of everyone else, that would be my preference. But I support what's already proposed.
Thank you.
Councillor Robbins.
Thank you. I do have a question. It was if I remember, I didn't look this up, so forgive me for that. But looking at the budget and the reductions, we're starting the counselors' training budget. So the 6 counselors started out this year, or we reduced from 10,000 to 9,000, which is a 10% reduction. And that shows that 9 times 6 is 54,000, and then the proposed budget spreadsheet. So you take out 12,000, which is 2,000 per, fine, it goes down to 42,000. But then the mayor's training budget for conferences and meetings, it's starting 2026 is 16,600. But I thought the mayor also had a reduction in our last discussion. We didn't reduce that?
I think it was
All right.
mentioned,
okay.
but that was not where it landed.
Okay, then perhaps well, I guess that's taking it down to 10,000, so that seems, okay, fine. Could you just talk a little bit slower about the changes to the TIAC conference?
Sure, yeah. So last year was the first year the conference put on an earlier session before the full conference started, and it was specifically for youth. And that was feedback they got from prior years from youth saying, this doesn't really feel like it applies to me, or there's not focused conversations. And so this revision would essentially just send the youth to the pre-conference only, not the pre-conference and the full.
And did we get feedback from the youth counselors last year stating that the full part was not as useful as the pre?
Yes, and we actually had a couple youth leave early because it was such a long trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I am in agreement with that. And I agree if we can find more to cut, that's fine. I know we had emailed back and forth about one of the mayor groups that we had budgeted. It was actually higher than what it was for our designated city size. So hopefully we can find more savings.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So to Councillor Robbins and Schlack, would you like to see a 5% version and 10% version, or would you just want to see a 10% version? I wasn't clear on what you were asking.
Well, I mean, my individual request doesn't necessarily represent a majority viewpoint to ask of staff, which is why I phrased it the way I did. But I would, if we're asking all other departments to expect a 10% general fund cut, I would like to match that as a council, just because I think it's important when we're facing budget cuts that we lead by example. And that's, something I raised a year ago when we were looking at just a 5% cut. And that's just that's my personal preference. But
Okay.
I don't necessarily believe that there's 4 people up here who are in agreement with that.
Well, let me start with Councilor Robin. Would you like to see 10%, or are you okay with a 5%? Or would you like to see, if possible, we try 10%?
I think we'd have to see what the other reductions would be before I
Okay.
said jump to 10%. I mean, one thing that it's kind of on here is like the mayor's innovation project, and it has in parentheses reduced by 7,500, and we kind of don't get credit for that reduction because it says 2,500, when last year we did budget 10,000, but it turns out the cost is really only 2,500. So I feel like we should get extra
Get it
credit for that,
counted.
because it is, that's a more accurate thing.
That's
The
fair.
other thing is, since last year we voted to not do that anymore, do we want to be? I looked at it and it looks like an interesting thing, but if we're not going to take advantage of it, maybe we get rid of that this
Okay.
year. I don't know. It's
Okay.
just an idea.
And what's your view on the $5,000 contingency fund? Would you like it or no?
I would rather not.
Not? Okay. Youth Councilor, do you have any input?
I just had a clarifying question I wanted to ask, because you have the youth counselor and the youth TIAC. Those were there's 2 separate things there. The send 2 TIAC members and 1 Tiger team chaperone, that's the part where it's just skipping out on the general conference, right?
Yes, and that would be for the youth council position as well.
Yeah, and then that is also the same for the youth city councilor training. Okay,
Yep.
they're just 2 separate things because they're.
Yeah, 2 different lines, but yeah.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
Council President Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. So my question, Nicole, is I apologize for being remote this evening, but I'm looking at the spreadsheet in my hand, and if I round up 26 to 200, and then I see a reduction of 26, that's over 10%. So if we do everything, we've more than met that. Am I missing something?
Yeah, so the total mayor council budget is not listed here. These are only the discretionary items listed. So it's not the full picture because it doesn't include, for example, the staff member that's paid, the mayor council assistant or other items. So these are just more of that discretionary choices. So the total mayor council budget is 512,000, roughly. So it would be 10% of that. So it would be 51,000 would be a 10% reduction of a total budget.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Well, and that's where I don't have all my pieces in front of me. So there might be additional opportunities to look at that. And that's what gets tricky about our budget. Not to say we shouldn't be mindful and trim, but we're kind of a unique group as well. So I support whatever works to make a fiscally responsible budget. And I support all these issues. The contingency, I kind of wonder if there should be a reserve held on the social services grants. I appreciate Councilor Slack's concern in doing that because we just don't know what's coming ahead of us. But I'm sure all the nonprofits applying are going to be in tremendous need of funding in the coming year. So I support going forward and maybe looking more broadly across the whole budget, and maybe that's a conversation with Councilor Hu. But anyway, nevertheless, I support the changes.
And about the contingency, can you be more clear? I wasn't sure. Do you support the contingency?
Quite frankly, I really appreciate the 10,000, and then that was matched to 20. 5 would serve, I'm sure, individuals, but it's a smaller amount. So I guess if we are moving forward, trying to distribute all with social services and not hold back a greater amount, then I think we just, I'm fine not withholding it. If that helps us get to a bottom line that people feel better about, and then it goes with social services, and then we don't have money, to disperse in the year. So I don't know. I'm clear as mud. I know. So I'm fine either way. I think that at the
Okay.
end of the day, I feel like 5,000 is a great number, but it's not going to make a material impact on the needs that we'll likely see in the coming year. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Got it. Thank you. Councilor Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor, and just want to recognize Councilor Robbins. I agree that there have been some additional reductions. With that, I support the 5.1% and no more. I don't think we have a very large budget to begin with. So I think we are very judicious with our dollars. And also, I do not support the 5,000 contingency.
Okay. Councilor Anderson.
Just a question. So the counselor's training budget is about 7,000 per counselor. Historically, do the counselors use all that?
No.
So,
And it's attached in the staff report. It shows almost all, I think it's not to the level of individual counselor breakdown, but overall, none of the counselors meet their $7,000 or even $10,000 that they currently have.
right. So if we don't use it, it just goes back into the fund. Yeah. So it could be actually higher, the percentage. Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with the 5.1. I think you did a great job. Thanks.
And $5,000 contingency fund? No? Yes?
I don't know. In the past, we had a $10,000 slush fund type of thing, but I think 5,000 we could always find. You know, if something came up that we don't necessarily need it.
Okay. Councilor Gudusi, 5,000, yay, nay?
I would like to keep the 5,000 contingency. I also would actually support the move with the mayor if that was something that you were interested in. Any sort of health initiatives that we could do with the city is something that I'm going to try to support. But if there are other ways that we could do that, that's not necessarily moving with the mayor because I'm not going to make you move. Right? Like,
Wait, what do
it's
you
fine.
mean? I move quite a bit. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I think maybe we can find other ways to promote healthy movements without spending money. That's my favor, but I appreciate it. So I think the consensus is 5.1 is fine, but if we can look for more, that would be even better. And then I think the majority council does not want the $5,000 contingency, so.
Okay, and then just to be clear, so is there consensus on the 5 or 10%? Because I heard a little bit of a mix there, so I just want to be really sure.
Sound like there was consensus for 5.1%?
Yeah.
That was what I
Okay.
heard, not.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, at 5.1 as a floor with some general interest in finding
Okay, so
additional
I
savings.
can do another review, and if there are some things, I can always come back and suggest a little
Yeah.
bit more, but.
Go ahead, Emily.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate this conversation, and I also want to appreciate this council for demonstrating leadership in looking at your own budget to lead by example, as we're asking all of our departments to look at cuts. I recognize it's never an easy conversation to have, and as we pursue a zero-based budgeting, we do try to make sure that we spend the resources that we are setting aside. I wanted to acknowledge that as our departments are looking at reductions, we are looking at possibly removing vacant positions as a potential cost-saving measure. Salaries and benefits are among the higher costs that we carry year over year. I wanted to mention that to you today because I did hear some discussion about 5 or 10% that we're happy to take your direction with the staff recommendation as at 5.1%. Just acknowledging this is a challenging year and perhaps the first of a few more down the road. So again, I appreciate your thoughtful discussion on this budget, and we'll move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, thank you, councilors. All right, so this time for real, we are moving on to Transit Lodging Tax TLT Framework Adoption Discussion, and our Economic Development Manager, Holler, and Eco Northwest Project Director, Matt Craigie, will give the report, and there's a slide presentation. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. Thank you for having me back. I know it seems like I've been here a lot lately, but with 2 projects going on, we did feel it was important to keep them separate. Tonight, we're here to talk about transient lodging tax. We were last here in early December with our draft vision and expenditure categories, which you had approved with minor changes and offered us to move forward with the drafting of the final framework, which is what we're here tonight to talk about and look for your final approval. Next slide. Tonight, our ask of you is to confirm alignment with the TLT vision, validate the expenditure categories, and there is a resolution in front of you tonight for adoption of the final framework. Next slide. Project purpose was to establish a framework for the use of TLT, transient lodging tax funding across the city. We have, since the last time we were here, the final vision and funding categories. What we want to talk about tonight is implementation and next steps. So I'll really be emphasizing what's been added to the framework since the last time we talked, and then leave time for Q&A. Next slide. The establishment of a strategic framework, again, the framework being the emphasis, not a final plan. The framework is to give us the tools to move forward with more intentional and strategic use of transient lodging tax year over year across various opportunities across the city. Next slide. Reminder that we are governed by the post-2003 transient lodging tax rules as guided by the state of Oregon. So at least 70% must be reinvested into tourism promotion or tourism-related facilities. That's the portion that we're talking about under the use of the TLT framework. There's no recommendation or anticipation of changing the 30% allotted that goes directly to city services. There's no mention or request to change that 30%. We're just talking about the 70% directed at tourism promotion or tourism-related facilities. Next slide. The vision that came back from the recommendations of council in December has been stated as the City of Tigard invests transient lodging tax funds using a thoughtful and balanced approach supported by strong partnerships to attract visitors, build a recognizable brand identity, and create year-round experiences that highlight the city's recreational assets, entertainment offerings, and destination appeal in ways that benefit the community, businesses, and visitors alike. Next slide. The expenditure priorities, again, these are the broad categories and prioritization of investment that both the work group and council commented on in December. The first priority for evaluation would be promotion and marketing. So any investments that either are city-led or partner efforts to attract visitors by sharing Tigard's story, developing the city's brand, promoting events, amenities, experiences that draw people to Tigard. Second priority is destination improvements that includes enhancements to visitor-serving places, amenities that support access, navigation, and the experience of exploring Tigard, including improvements to infrastructure, wayfinding, recreation connections, and other features that help visitors find and enjoy what Tigard has to offer. Our third priority has been identified as events and entertainment, including support for programming and activities offered throughout the year by the city and its partners to attract visitors and create that regional draw for Tigard. Next slide. So now we're into the part that's new, the implementation of how we get there. One of the things identified in the framework is the recommended establishment of a committee. And we feel like it's important to create a TLT administrative committee because we want to make sure that not only are we using this money strategically and intentionally with council's guidance, but that we're doing it in a manner that doesn't get anybody in the hot seat for use of money. Obviously, we'll have our city attorney on the committee, but looking across departments to make sure that there's no single use or single decision point in the identification and allocation of transient lodging tax funds. We'll talk a little bit more about the committee makeup on the next slide. But also we wanted to be sure that we had this in place ahead of the 2026-2027 budget cycle, and that this year would be the pilot year for the administrative committee, and we would be using the newly formed preliminary TLT allocation tool, and we do intentionally call it a preliminary tool because we anticipate, as with frameworks do, we'll be able to adjust over time and use this year as what works and what do we need to do ahead of next funding cycle. Next slide. The administrative committee, we felt it was important, again, to get that diversity and representation from perspectives. We feel it's important at a minimum to include the finance director, community development director, economic development manager, grants committee representative, and city attorney on this committee. Again, that's at a very minimum. Committee participation can always be greater than that. We're recommending at least an annual meeting of the committee with review for all funding requests. This is identified preliminary in the January-February timeframe because right now is when we're in the budget cycle space to be navigating and negotiating funds for the next fiscal year. And then additionally, it's in alignment with the city's community grant process so that we can help identify eligible grant applications or eligible opportunities for use of TLT funds, which could also turn around and save or be able to support additional general funds committee or grant requests by being able to transition some, if there's eligible grant requests, they could be transitioned to TLT funds. And then we also recommend either quarterly or ad hoc based on if there's additional cyclical allocations or requests for use of TLT funds. Next slide. The preliminary tool that's being proposed is really just a decision matrix, and all requests/applications for use of TLT funds would move through the process. Our very first step in the space would be to run all proposals by the city attorney to even get that validation of eligibility. We had some great discussions in our workshop on what that could look like, what it would look like, and it's that justification of are we meeting the thresholds, are we meeting the intent and purpose, and are we meeting the law saying what we can and cannot do. Before we even move into any debate or discussion, we want to make sure that we're only debating or discussing eligible activities. We also had a really good conversation about partial funding eligibility and being able to demonstrate and articulate impact intent, what portion of something could or couldn't be. So we want to be very clear that this is not a go, no-go hard stop. This could be a tell me more. This could be a partial, but let's articulate it better. Let's make sure that the proposals and requests are in alignment with the guidance and rules so that we can even move on to the next phases, which would be the next evaluation criteria would be, does the proposal for use of TLT funds meet the vision statement? Are we hitting those categories broadly of what we see the use of TLT funds returning on the investment for the city? And then looking at the priority expenditure alignment, again, with that promotion and marketing being our top priority, as stated in the framework, destination improvements as the second, events and entertainment as the third. This would help give us a little bit of funding priority if we get to the space where the requests exceed the requested amount by council, if it exceeds our expected revenues, if there's a situation where we would be dipping into the reserves versus using the current year's anticipated revenues, et cetera. And then the fourth would be that real evaluation against strategic use of resources. How well leveraged is a request? What's the impact? Does it hamper our availability or opportunity to fund anything else with our transient lodging tax fund? What is the community benefit? Is it going to be as equally impactful as the investment? And then are we looking at one of the things that was identified in the vision statement as a priority of the work group was leveraging partnerships and leveraging resources throughout the city to really expand the impact of these investments. And so are we doing what we need to do with partnerships to make sure that this is community use of the funds in leveraging the partnerships that we have invested in going forward. Next slide. So what we're looking for tonight is, again, that confirmation with the updated modified TLT vision, validation of those 3 expenditure categories, and then look to affirm approval of the framework with the resolution in front of you tonight. And with that, I'd like to open to any questions.
Thank you, councilors. Oh, Council President Wolf.
Next slide, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we go back to the slide for the committee? Denal, I just want to make sure I understand how those decisions are getting made on funding.
Yes, so go back 4 slides, I believe. Keep going. Keep going.
Too far. Too far.
Let's go to slide 9, please.
There we go.
Yes, so the identification of the staff positions, making sure that finance director right now has control of the transient lodging tax funds and has traditionally been used in alignment with the grants committee. That's how most of the expenditures of TLT funds under our historically conservative approach have been allocated. We are offering the importance of bringing in the community development director and the economic development manager because of the importance on connecting with that investment in tourism-related facilities and tourism-related activities. Those are both areas that fall under the day job of your community development director and your economic development manager. We do want somebody from... Oh, go ahead.
No, Janelle, so to be clear on my question, so it seems what I'm trying to understand is if Director King, through our social services grant day or other programs we have in place that engage our community members or outside groups, I feel like this has shifted to a complete internal group. Am I misunderstanding that? That's kind of what my question was, is in terms of the funding distribution. Because some of the events were part of the social services. So I guess maybe more plainly, has the engagement of community members or outside groups now shifted under this model? Does that make sense?
I believe I'm understanding your question to say, does this change the request for what the actual activity is that is being requested for funding? And my recommendation and our what we envision here is that doesn't change, right? So the community event that would want to use TLT funding as their way forward, they would still go through whoever they're working with, whatever they're doing now to create the event. What we're recommending as a change and as a collective kind of check and balance is it still goes before council as if it's a fundable activity, if it's something that wants to be invested in. This committee, as an administrative committee, would make that determination if it can be used for transient lodging tax fund can be used, or if it needs to be identified as general fund, or if there's a mix of that, right? So we're not recommending displacing any other decision-making processes or bodies that go towards funding activities, events, community-focused social services, anything. We're looking to make sure that there's actually an added layer to keep us all in the above board of identification and allocation of just the funding source of transient lodging tax as part of those things going forward, which is why one of the proposed members is somebody from the grants committee, because that is historically, again, where we've seen the funding requests or the typically eligible items come through. We also understand that there's at least an appetite for more strategic investment and use of transient lodging tax money. And this is in that navigation in between the spaces of economic development, strategic plan, and transient lodging tax framework, in that universal across the board acknowledgement that the city of Tigard doesn't necessarily have a ready on hand agreed upon brand that we can take and go market. We don't have a plug and play anything that we could engage regional tourism partner and create an ad campaign and go invest in the attraction of additional visitor nights to reinvest in that engine of the TLT and get more nights. So we acknowledge that with our top priority being promotion and marketing, transient lodging tax is an eligible, approved, and very valid funding source to go do that work. And we anticipate seeing that same intention mirrored on the economic development strategic plan side as we continue to work through the last few phases of that project as well, saying brand identity in a marketing sense is very important as an investment strategy for the city moving forward. And we expect that partnership to rise to the eligibility level of using TLT funds. But again, we don't want to make that decision unilaterally. We don't want to make that in any sort of bubble. Those are all funding decisions that an administrative committee with different perspectives that could bring in even the eligibility of it. And then the framework intentionally leaves space to apply direction from council. As council goals change every 2 years, as the climate changes, as community focus changes, as we navigate economic challenges, right? All of the things that change year over year can still be applied to TLT framework in a manner that leaves those directions and decisions with council as well.
Councilor Robbins.
Thank you. I'm just going to add on to Council President Wolf's question, and I'll just be blunt. I really don't think you answered her question if I understand the question, okay? How this worked last year, which was my first time here, my first time doing a budget, and also my first time on the special events and community grants, and I see Finance Director Kang is there because he was here, he taught us, is we get a long list of people or groups asking for money. Some are social services, some are special events. And so then for the special events, we pick out which of these qualifies for TLT. And that is something that actually the individual groups or entities say, yes, we qualify for TLT. You know, yes, we have people from more than 50 miles away or 100 miles away coming, blah, blah, blah. We think we meet that criteria, is what the groups say. And then we have a budget of a certain amount of funds some's from the general fund, I think, for social services, some's from the marijuana tax, some's from TLT, and we get to divvy that money up. That's what we're asking is, do we still get to divvy that money up for those events? Understanding that we also have the priorities of marketing and then facility improvements and then fun events, or I'm not wording it quite right, but those three things. And so this committee sounds like it's going to take away that divvying the money up away from the committee. Or is it that we still get to divvy up our little allocation and the rest of the TLT funds that previously were going into the bank to save up for whatever big thing we were going to spend on, that gets divvied up with advertising?
Yeah.
Council President Wolf, was that your question? Because that's what I heard it to be. Shouldn't have put her on the spot.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
I think Finance Director King has.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, Finance Director Eric Kang. So I just wanted to provide some insight into what's being proposed tonight. So ultimately, one thing to keep in mind is that the authority of budget appropriation lies with the Budget Committee and Council. So all in all, at the end of the day, it is still within Council and the Budget Committee's authority to set what the budget levels are. So what this framework is really getting to is how we allocate of the total TLT 70% will be allocated towards the grant process. So the way I would envision it is that, if, say, we have a 70% allocation, maybe, 100,000 of that will be allocated towards the grant. Then the grant committee will still continue forward and make that decision how those funds get allocated to the different organizations. But this establishes a framework in which also how we can weigh and come to an agreed upon consensus whether or not a activity meets the requirements of a TLT eligible activity. So when we're looking at a questionable grant applicant, there's a way for us to kind of have a consensus in that, yes, this does make sense and that they meet the criteria of being a TLT eligible activity. Does that help answer your questions?
So does that mean, so just to go back to, we get our list of people, and before it was like, yes, TLT, yes, yes, yes. Will this committee kind of pre-vet that list and say these ones all do meet the criteria?
The intention of the committee would be to pre-vet anybody who's asking for TLT funds. And it's also important to recognize that the grant committee is not the only way that TLT funds get invested or allocated across the city. So there would be an additional step for any grant application members to review to make sure that it does go through basically the legal review process to say, yes, these are eligible for the grant committee to consider using TLT funds for, or say, no, these are not eligible for TLT funds. Please treat this as a general fund request grant application. It would not change the grant committee's option and opportunity to identify and allocate those awards. We would just take that legal burden of justification and eligibility as a preliminary step before it even gets to the grant committee. The other thing is it would be using the exact same process for internal requests, for additional partner requests, for any expenditures that would be asking for TLT. Again, it's not, the community grant process is not the only way that TLT gets invested. We also have partners who are pretty heavily funded out of the TLT, making sure that all of those go through the same vetting process every single year.
Okay, thank you. I do have one more question. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Just thinking of the fact that we're in a budget constraint and people are going to be doing more work with less. Have we had any issues where we funded something with TLT funds that it turned out it wasn't actually eligible because just because a lot of these people who are named on this committee already have an awful lot to do, and so is this, in concept, I'm not opposed to this, but I'm wondering if it's truly necessary to then add an additional duty onto the finance director, community development director. These people are very busy people, and so do we need to add this on, or is it just a kind of nice to have?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the acknowledgement and recognition that we are all very busy, especially this time of year. It is true, we are. The time that it takes to review applications for funding is significantly less time than it takes to undo an incorrect allocation. We are in a litigious time, and cities can be sued over incorrect use of TLT allocation. It is not something to be taken lightly. It's not something to look at and go, oops, oh well. It is something that we need to be very mindful of going forward, putting a process in place that keeps us on an above board equal framework to be able to clearly articulate our intention and our investment. Our investment with use of TLT historically has been very conservative because we've only been looking at those things that clearly rise to the eligibility. Our intention and what we understand is direction from council moving forward is to be more forward-looking and investment-looking as we create opportunities to offset some of these budget reductions, offset some of the other impacts to fiscal restraints by identifying more opportunities to invest in transient lodging tax. We have historically not had expenditures that meet our revenues. And we're not saying we want to, right? We don't want to exceed it. But we also do want to take the opportunity to say, we have this income source that we have fought for, we've said is important to us, and it is our fiscal responsibility to reinvest that back into the system of tourism and tourism-related activities. Or we need to identify a reason why we're holding it. So one of those two. But it creates that layer for us to be able to have that equity lens, that eligibility lens. And it also saves work ahead of time, because if a project goes all the way through, or an event or an activity goes all the way through the creation and the support process, and we're ready to go, and it is found out about after the fact of, by the way, this isn't eligible, there could have been different decisions along the way. There could have been different efforts along the way that could have been saved had we had that early identification of even something that, yes, we can pursue a conversation, or please select a different pathway.
All right, Councilor Schlack.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say, as far as the grants topic goes, if something's not TLT eligible, that doesn't mean we can't fund it. It would just come from the general fund side of the bucket as well. So, I mean, my concern with TLT has been we're levying this tax and we're collecting it, and 70% of it we don't have a clear path to spend beyond issuing a few tens of thousands of grants, dollars worth of grants every year. And that's why I really like this framework and this initiative that came out of the council goals, in order to make sure we can fully leverage those dollars and unlock them to the benefit of our community. Because otherwise, the question becomes, why are we still levying this tax? I understand the benefit to the general fund with that 30%. That's not nothing. But the question is, why do we have that tax burden? So I really love the framework. I love the vision statement. I love the administrative committee in terms of having cross-functional perspectives on how we can invest these dollars in areas outside of grants, which would be outside that subcommittee process. And I do like having the grant committee representative as well. So there is a touch of having a community member who's involved, who's not necessarily part of council. And at the end of the day, we'll see how this framework works out over time. It'll get refined. We have final say over the budget process. So I really appreciate all the work that you and all of our stakeholders did as part of this workshop process. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If I may add just one thing. So I just wanted to remind council, and the community, the impetus for this is also because, when we first established the TLT funds, there was some direction many years ago to invest into a regional sporting field, and that is not feasible anymore. And so we are now going down the path of finding a different project or investment opportunity for these funds. And so that is the impetus of why we're doing this.
Thank you. Councilor Shaw.
Great, thank you. And I too want to thank the committee that put the framework together. A couple things. One, from the administrative committee, it really is, can we legally do this or can we not? It's not you're making the funding decisions. Is that correct?
Correct, because again, the budgetary authority still lies with council no matter what.
Terrific. Just want to make sure I was clear on that. I too appreciate the cross-functional perspective. What I do think is missing is the voice of the community partners, whether it's the Tigard Chamber of Commerce, Washington Square, Explore Tualatin Valley. So I'm not sure where that fits in here, if that's part of the administrative committee, if it's like a subset, if it's a separate. So I'd like to see that in place too, just so we have the experts around our region who will speak to potentially those dollars. Look to you for your
So
thoughts.
we do offer caution on involving partners who are potential recipients of the funds. And so when we talk about involving our tourism partners, they're also the partners that we anticipate being eligible to receive
Totally understand that. Just
TLT
as,
funds.
yeah, partnerships, does the expenditure amplify a valued community partnership?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure we're ensuring that that's happening, and it's with those those strategic plans and those voices in mind.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on Councilor Shaw's line of questioning. So when I saw the committee member, and based on your explanation, these are the people who are in charge of determining whether it's TLT eligible. So I thought my understanding, maybe I was not reading this correctly before, is so there will be no additional party or person in charge of attracting like events or things like that, potential event to Tiger. Is that correct? So this plan doesn't involve attracting events? So there's nobody's in charge of doing that under this plan?
So again, we want to be very clear. This is a framework for the identification of eligible investments.
Okay, got it.
This is
All right.
not an actionable plan that
Got
says
it.
we're going to go forward and do these things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So, and again, the committee member, the administrative committee members have been identified because everybody on that list has a day job
Got
responsible
it.
for
Yeah.
eligible
Yeah, I
activities.
just wanted to
under
confirm
TIP.
that.
Yep. So
So-
it's still my job, but it's the one over here.
I understand. So it's great to have this in place, but my concern is that if we are concerned about not enough places or people to spend this money on, is it in the plan to have that kind of attracting events to our Tiger Place? Is that part in the future plan or?
It wouldn't be under the framework of
Okay.
TLT.
All right.
That falls under the work plan and priorities of economic development.
Got it. So it's two separate things.
Two separate
Okay,
things.
great. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And just so I'm clear, so we're going to, and I hear you about the ensuring that there isn't particular organizations that are going to be benefited inappropriately. However, we can use them as educational resources given their expertise, and we do plan on doing that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And following up on that, when we bounce off each other. So going back to this committee, I heard you said, when they come, you will tell them, this is not eligible for TLT, you have to use general fund. Can you foresee scenario where you will say, but if you do this, you will be qualified for TLT? Is that something that's on the table as well, or you strictly, no, what you propose is not eligible, use general fund only, so.
It's our intention to be able to guide as many activities, events, applications, investments towards TLT as possible.
Good.
One of the commitments we have is to work to get people to a yes. However, the conversation on partial funding is where that would come in.
Got it.
Or being able to say, if you change these things, it meets the threshold, it meets the requirement. As is, it's not eligible. But if we tell a different story, if we change something to truly make this a regional draw, if we make this activity event investment rise to the threshold of saying this is unique enough compared to surrounding cities that do something similar, this is unique enough in Oregon that would be able to realistically justify and consistently justify that this is a regional draw that has the potential of attracting visitors from over 50 miles away, that has the potential of creating those hotel night stays, which is that reinvestment in the system of generating more transient lodging tax nights. And so it's being able to articulate the eligibility, and it's our intention to help get applicants and requested users of TLT funds to that. And we also understand the burden will be heavy the first couple of years because it's going to be an education opportunity across the board.
Yeah,
We're not just talking about the grants committee or community partners or organizations that want to use the money. It'll be conversations with our Chamber of Commerce on what activities are eligible and what activities are not. It's going to be conversations with Explore Tualatin Valley on what activities meet the threshold and what investment strategies and partnership opportunities there are. But it's also going to be a really big learning curve for our own staff and for people who put on events, for people who do community-facing activities, because we have to meet the threshold of the requirements of the funding.
Yeah, I understand, and I'm not criticizing this. This is great. I'm just concerned that in the long term, if we don't have the other piece where we have this, determination threshold in place, but there's no, people going out to actively recruiting events. I know that's staff's constraint and stuff like that. This by itself, it's a gatekeeper say, we're waiting for you to come and we'll approve without active recruitment in the long term. But that's conversation for another day. So thank you. Any other, we have about 5 minutes. So any other comments or we need to have a motion to.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 26-02, a resolution adopting a strategic framework to guide the use of transit lodging tax revenue in the city of Tigard.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve resolution number 26-02 and second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the youth counselor give an advisory vote?
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? So resolution number 26-02 is adopted by a unanimous vote of the council. So thank you so much for your presentation and your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next agenda item is resolution of necessity related to right-of-way and easement acquisition for the Tiger Street Fennel Creek Bridge Replacement Project. And our senior project engineer, Morris, will give the staff report. Good evening.
Good evening, Council Mayor. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, I'm Senior Project Engineer with the Engineering Division of Public Works, and the item being brought before you is a resolution of necessity to acquire easements and right-of-way for the Tiger Street Bridge over Fennel Creek Replacement Project. It's a CIP 95060. I think all of you except Councilor or one of you have heard about the project at various times this past year during our land use approval and a contract amendment. So I won't get into too much of the background, but we're nearing final design on the project. We're getting our final permits, and we're gearing up to start the property acquisition phase in preparation to go actually perform construction. And so the resolution is pretty standard for this type of project. It establishes project needs, saying that the project is per our plans and system plans, and that it was designed for the greatest public good and with not excessive detriment to any of the individual property owners. And then in the event we are at an impasse with any property owner, be it they're not responsive or we just can't come to an agreement, we would be in position to pursue eminent domain or condemn for the property rights. That's always a touchy term or subject. The project team has no plan at this moment to do that. We've had pretty good relationships with the property owners. There are only 4 private properties, and there's a variety of different easement needs. All 4 of them, we need temporary construction easements. Some of them we need permanent easements for things like slopes, drainage, and utilities. And then there's one chunk on one property we need to expand the public right-of-way to encompass the bridge itself. So this item is seeking your approval, and I'm available to try to answer any questions you may have related to it.
Thank you, Zach, for the presentation. Council members, do you have any questions for Zach? Councilor Gudusi.
Thank you, Mayor. For the permanent easements, have any of the landowners had any objections that you know of?
No. The 3 property owners that have, or I guess just the 2 that have permanent easements we've been talking to, one has bid pretty limited. That's on the northeast corner of the bridge. They said as long as their tenant was happy I'm getting a little bit of echo. Is it okay on your guys' end?
Yes.
Okay. And so the tenant seemed happy with our plans. And then the other one where we've been talking very closely, you never know at these things till the papers are signed, but we've done a lot of legwork with all the property owners except one, which has a very small impact, and we haven't had a need to interact with much to date. So as best as we can, we feel pretty good about going into the process.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have, anybody want to make a motion? If you don't have questions?
Should I do it? Okay.
Go ahead, Councilor Robbins.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 26-03, a resolution declaring the need to acquire property for the Tigard Street, Vanna Creek Bridge replacement project and authorizing eminent domain and immediate possession if necessary.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Councilor Schlack. So Councilor Robin moved to approve resolution number 2603, and there's a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the youth councilor give an advisory vote?
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Seeing none, resolution number 26-03 is adopted by a unanimous vote of the council. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
So we don't have any non-agenda item, and we don't have any executive session, so there being no additional items, this meeting is adjourned. Good night, Tiger.